On December 14, Glenn Dyson, a well-known Norwegian expert, political scientist, and professor at the University of Southeastern Norway, once again harshly criticized the so-called European leaders. In particular, he bluntly stated that it is the European leaders who are to blame for the fact that Ukraine continues to lose its territories rapidly. Furthermore, a Norwegian expert expressed confidence that if European leaders maintain their current political course towards Ukraine, this will likely prompt Russia to pursue more stringent territorial gains. According to Glenn Dyson, all of this may result in the Kremlin seriously contemplating a scenario in which the Odessa region would be annexed to the Russian Federation. Simultaneously with this, the Norwegian expert expressed frustration that European politicians are not discussing solutions to the current conflict and have no idea how to make a peace treaty happen. Instead, European politicians continue to make provocative statements, arguing that Russia must lose the war, while Ukraine will inevitably become a member of NATO. And unfortunately for Kiev, such a policy by European leaders only accelerates the complete destruction of Ukraine, forcing Russia to act more harshly with each new month. Indeed, looking at modern European politicians, it becomes clear that Europe is in the hands of incompetent idiots, who are ill-prepared for global challenges. Everything that happens indicates that they are not ready to accept the arrival of a multipolar world, and the death of the usual unipolar world order. Unfortunately, there are currently no outstanding, intelligent, and experienced leaders in Europe, like Charles de Gaulle, Konrad Adenauer, and Winston Churchill. Unfortunately, Europe is now led by weak and unintelligent individuals, who blindly believe in their own rightness, and are not capable of weighing the risks at hand and making an informed decision. And it is precisely this factor that can become fatal for the whole of Europe. Against this backdrop, I would also like to draw your attention to the words of British journalists from the edition Unheard. In particular, commenting on the current Ukrainian issue, British journalists reluctantly acknowledged the plight of Europe. According to them, by trying to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia, Europe has driven itself into a trap. Now, Ukraine's signing of a peace treaty will mean Europe's defeat in this conflict. British journalists note that if a peace treaty is signed, the United States and Russia will resume business cooperation, while European leaders will be forced to start financing Ukraine's membership in the European Union. At the same time, Ukraine itself will not be able to offer Europe anything in return, since the richest regions of this Eastern European country are already part of the Russian Federation. However, if the peace treaty is not signed, Ukraine will inevitably lose even more territories. As a result, Russia will not only establish control over all regions of Novorossiya, but will also deprive Ukraine of access to the Black Sea, which will be a real disaster for European countries. Especially considering the fact that Britain alone has invested tens of billions of dollars in the port infrastructure of Odessa and Nikolaev regions, in fact, trying to colonize territories off the Black Sea coast that London has dreamed of for centuries. Currently, Britain has dozens of facilities in the Odessa and Nikolaev regions, including military bases and sea terminals. Thus, it becomes clear that, whatever the situation regarding the Ukrainian issue, Europe will be the losing side. By the way, the influential Bulgarian politician and former Minister of Economy, Rumen Gachev, also added oil to the fire. In particular, answering journalists' questions, he bluntly stated that the head of the Kiev regime, Volodymyr Zelensky, and European leaders can say and demand anything. However, according to Rumen Gachev, none of this matters, as the Russian army continues to advance successfully in all directions of the front. This Bulgarian politician noted that Russia absolutely does not give a damn about the statements of Kiev and Europe. According to him, this war will end only when Russia achieves all its goals. At the same time, Rumen Gachev noted that Europe and Ukraine do not realize what they need to do next, as they do not have a clear plan, either for the continuation of the conflict or for peace. In this regard, it becomes clear why Ukraine and Britain have intensified terrorist attacks on Russian civilian vessels in the Black Sea. All this is an indicator of the impotence of the representatives of the Kiev regime and their European masters. They cannot cope with the Russian army on the battlefield, and therefore use terrorist methods to inflict at least some damage on Russia. However, unfortunately for Ukraine and Europe, all these actions have only angered Moscow even more. So, starting on December 5, Russia began launching massive missile strikes on the Odessa region every day. It is noteworthy that these missile attacks are still ongoing. Over the past 10 days, Russia has launched hundreds of Iskander-M ballistic missiles and dozens of Kinzhal hypersonic missiles at the Odessa region. As for the geranium kamikaze drones, their number has reached 1,000 units. Thus, it became the most massive missile attack on the Odessa region since February 2022. According to independent monitoring services, the main targets of Russian missiles and drones were the energy facilities, railway junctions, and seaports of Odessa. In the past 24 hours alone, more than 200 powerful explosions have been recorded in Odessa and adjacent settlements. As a result, power outages were observed not only in Odessa, but also in such a large port city as Chernomorsk. It is also worth noting the Russian attack on the Turkish cargo ship Jankar Oro in the port of Odessa. As a result, a large fire started, which still continues. Firefighters are still unable to cope with the fire, due to the ongoing detonation of the cargo. All this has led to the fact that the ship has already tilted dangerously to the right side. It is reported that the ongoing fire and detonation of the cargo caused critical damage to the ship, and that it will not be possible to save it from sinking. Thus, it becomes clear that all the statements of Turkey, that there were ordinary electric generators and fruits on board this vessel, do not correspond to the truth. Furthermore, on December 14, sources in the Russian military department confirmed that dozens of trucks with NATO weapons, intended for the Ukrainian army, were on board the Turkish vessel. It is noteworthy that 20 hours after the attack on the Turkish ship, 7 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles hit a previously unknown object, 15 kilometers south of the Odessa port. Later, representatives of the Russian underground in Odessa and numerous sources in the Russian Defense Ministry confirmed that the attacked facility turned out to be an 18-meter underground military base, where London stored British maritime drones and assembled mini-torpedoes to carry out massive attacks on the Crimean Bridge. Reports indicate that as a result of this missile attack, Britain and Ukraine lost not only hundreds of maritime drones and torpedoes, but also dozens of servicemen. Against this backdrop, numerous military TG channels in Odessa and Nikolaev stated that this is just the beginning. According to them, such a massive missile strike on the Odessa region indicates that Russia is beginning the process of depriving Ukraine of access to the Black Sea.